Coming up on Transformers University, we'll head back to Mount Verona, catch up with some old friends, and meet some new ones. We're talking Marvel UK Comics right now on Transformers University. Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode number 142 of Transformers University. I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO, the website, the toy archive, this podcast, TFU News and Views podcast, and oh so much more. I want to welcome you to another Marvel UK special episode of Transformers University. Now, before we get into the comic portion of this conversation, I do want to invite you over to the conversation over on Patreon, patreon.com/TFU.INFO. If you haven't been there, I've made a whole bunch of improvements over the last month or so, and it's been a really good time. We're developing this great community there. I post pretty regularly. I try to post every day. It doesn't always happen, but it's sometimes every other day with lots of exclusive posts for members, including one exclusive post just recently for junior members and up, where I shared the unreleased photo, the Hasbro mock-up of Hasbro's attempt at an Amazon Prime Optimus Prime. This is an official mock-up photo that was taken back in 2021. It went listed once on Amazon, but with no photos, and it was Amazon Australia, and then showed up again when Hasbro made their deal with Volvo, because the Volvo trucks are the Amazon fleet, but it has never really resurfaced. And the economics of toy collecting has changed, and the economics of the toy industry has changed, and so this figure probably will never get made. And so it's a Earthrise mold Optimus Prime with an Amazon trailer and some other neat goodies. And the photo shows all of that, at least what they had planned. And you can get an exclusive access to that at patreon.com/TFU.INFO. So come on down, come join, and be part of the conversation. Plus, I'll give you inside looks into things from this episode, and on lots of our other episodes, you get exclusive podcasts. I know I've got one I'm planning very soon, probably after the next episode of this podcast, and it's just a good time. So hope to see you there. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. Junior level is $3 a month. It goes all the way up to senior level and super senior level. So with that, let's get into this episode. We're going to talk about 4 issues of the Marvel UK run, and these are ones that sandwich other issues that have come out in the United States. And we're talking issues 152 and 153, and then 160 and 161. And though this comes back from the last time we covered Marvel UK, we covered way back in our episode 137, so not too long ago, about 5-6 episodes ago. While that featured an overarching story of Legacy of Unicron, these 2 stories feature Mount Verona. Mount Verona! And if you don't remember, Mount Verona is where in the Marvel UK Annual, ultimately Galvatron and Ultra Magnus fought until they were buried inside the volcano. Mount Verona! And so we'll start with issue 152, Enemy Action Part 1. Features a cover of Galvatron punching Seacons drawn by Lee Sullivan. Written by Simon Furman. Pencils by Jeff Anderson.
You're a cigarette.
Inks by Stephen Baskerville. Colors with a U by Steve White. And letters by someone named Glib. And this is a new person. Glib is Gary Gilbert. He was a longtime Marvel UK letterer. Worked on lots of Marvel UK before leaving Marvel UK for a company called Eagle Moss. Now he's the co-owner of a company called Bullpen Productions. It's a UK company that designs and creates and project manages publications. So he's gone from the lettering side to more of the overall business scope of print production and comic production too. So we open on meeting the Seacons, and this is an interesting moment here because we meet the Seacons in Marvel UK before we meet them in the Marvel US books. Now, I don't necessarily know the timing as far as this book versus the US book, but we know it came out at least a little bit ahead by some of the things that happened in the story, and plus on how the Seacons are colored. The Seacons in the story are colored in a way that is very similar to how they were in their US toy commercial.
New Transformers are here. From the bottom of the sea come the monsters of the deep, the Target Masters Seacon.
Target Master Transformers, they've got the power.
And the Seacons form Piranacon.
And the U.S. version of the Marvel introduction won't happen for several issues in the Marvel UK. And one other interesting piece of trivia, if you will, is that instead of being called Overbite is called Jawbreaker, which we can only presume was an early name for the toy. So the story starts with Galvatron returning from underneath Mount Verona. Mount Verona! Shockwave knows this and receives some counsel from Soundwave to talk to Galvatron and form an alliance instead of just attacking him. But Shockwave doesn't want that, and instead he sends the Seacons to fight. Galvatron in the fight defeats the individual Seacons until they form Piranacon. On the coastline of Florida, we meet the Sparklers. Who? The Sparklers. Who? Well, the Sparklers are what they're calling the Sparkerbots, which we've covered in the 1988 toy episode, as they get a report from Springer about Galvatron escaping Mount Verona. Mount Verona! Galvatron continues to fight Piranacon, and the Sparklers wait for backup at Mount Verona. But the Firecons arrive, and that wraps up Part 1 of Enemy Action, which takes us to issue 153, Enemy Action Part 2. This one has a cover of the Sparkerbots, Duke, and Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, drawn by Lee Sullivan. The Transformers book at this point now starts sharing its pages with Action Force. It's the UK equivalent of G.I. Joe. This book features the same creative team as the previous book, so we don't need to go through all of that. And it starts with the Firecon setting fire to the beach in Florida. And also to Sizzle. Sizzle sinks into the ocean, trying to put himself out. Shockwave watches the Galvatron fight and defeat the Seacons, and the Firecons and Sparklers, aka the Sparkerbots, fight some more on the beach. Underwater, Galvatron tears his way into the Decepticon base to talk. He chides Shockwave for not offering an alliance. I guess Soundwave was right. And then he threatens some retribution and leaves. Clearly, Galvatron is sowing seeds of dissent within Shockwave's ranks. Now, Galvatron then decides to take a walk in the ocean and walk out of the ocean, and he's carrying Sizzle, who has been, deep fried, I guess. We find out the Firecons are sent from Cybertron to recruit Galvatron, and Galvatron refuses such recruitment and walks off. Shockwave has a new plan, and you see his computer screen, and his new plan is Megatron. What will happen next? Well, we'll have to wait until issue 160 of the UK book before finding out. Now, in between this story and issue 160 are US issues 37, 38, and 39, which is the three stories all before the ones that we covered in issue 137 before the Pretender shells. Now, we've got another two stories to cover, but first, give this a listen.
Hey, want to help out this podcast or the website TFU.INFO? There's a number of ways you can do it. Let me tell you how. You can help us directly by joining our Patreon and enrolling as a student at Transformers University. There, you'll get early access to the podcast as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes peeks and perks for as little as $1 a month. Sign up is quick and easy. Just swing on by to www.patreon.com/TFUINFO. Another way you can help us is by using our Amazon link, www.tfu.info/Amazon. Type that into your browser whenever you want to shop at Amazon, and a portion of what you spend will be contributed back to us. It's that easy. Finally, you don't become the world's longest running transforming toy archive without some help from other fans. We're always on the hunt for photos of figures and accessories we're missing from our pages. If you'd like to contribute, go to tfu.info/help for a list of what we need, or send an email to info@tfu.info. tfu.info, the Alpha Trion and Omega Prime of transforming toys. Now, back to the show.
And we come back to issue 160, which features a cover of Ultra Magnus Finding Out the Floor is Lava by Brian Hitch. This book written by Simon Furman, art by Lee Sullivan, colors with a U by Evan Peters, letters by Tom Frame, and it's entitled Salvage Part 1. Now, Tom Frame is new to the Transformers world. He, Marvel UK letterer, shocking I know, worked on Judge Dredd in 2000 AD, and Sonic the Comic. Sadly, Tom passed away of cancer in 2006. But his work lives on, and we start in London, UK, in April. And Megatron and Death's Head from their fight in previous UK issues are being salvaged from the Thames by Richard Branson. Now, they actually drew Richard Branson in the comic, and Marvel UK got permission from him to do that. This made some headlines back in the 80s. In reprint, it was changed to Mr. Johnson, and Lee Sullivan was even brought back to correct his own art and remove the beard of Richard Branson to make it into Mr. Johnson. So the salvage operation is ongoing, and it gets attacked by...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
Jawbreaker, a.k.a. Overbite. The Decepticon jets, which were the Coneheads and Blitzwing in this part of the story, steal back Megatron and Death's Head. Dirge is not dead yet in Marvel UK, so that's why he is there. And at Mount Verona, the Sparklers help Ultra Magnus out of the volcano, and we see that Ultra Magnus has like a form of PTSD from being buried alive in the mountain. At Decepticon base, Shockwave is trying to revive Megatron. He uses a psychoprobe to help that. For fans of the cartoon, this is the same type of device they use to get memories from Astoria Ritz-Carlton in the episode The Girl Who Loved Powerglide. Back with the Autobots, Ultra Magnus fears Galvatron's return, and then who shows up?
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
Galvatron. And that wraps up issue 1, taking us to part 2 of Salvage, issue number 161, with a cover of Megatron cowering at a returned Optimus Prime. Creative team is the same, so we'll move right into the story. We see inside Megatron's mind as he fears Optimus's retribution for killing him. And Shockwave observes this. On Mount Verona, Galvatron gloats over Ultra Magnus. Megatron, he fears Optimus until Straxus shows up in his mind to kill Optimus Prime. On Mount Verona, Galvatron fights the Sparklers, and we're starting to see a bit of a parallel storytelling here. It's actually pretty neat. And usually there'll be the left panels of the page will be Megatron, the right panels will be Ultra Magnus, and how they face these parallel fears. And in these stories, ultimately Megatron destroys Straxus, and Ultra Magnus works up the courage to defeat Galvatron. Shockwave then vows to return Megatron to his full power in order to fight Galvatron. Galvatron walks away from the battle with Ultra Magnus, and Ultra Magnus vows to destroy him at their next meeting. The end. And so, 161, the back end of Salvage is really good. The way the art is done, as I mentioned before, of being able to follow this it doesn't 100% fit of Megatron's fears of his own mind and of killing Optimus and having Straxus occupy part of his mind, and then Ultra Magnus's concurrent fear of being buried in lava again and fighting Galvatron and the levels he had gone to defeat Galvatron in the previous stories. It makes for a really, really fun read. This is very much a comic book story. And it's a great example of just how well done Marvel UK was going at that time. Now, where are we going? Well, if you're on the Patreon, you'd actually know because I gave a preview of the next 4 episodes up on patreon.com/TFU.INFO. Now, if you want to know where we're going in next episode, just stick around and find out.
Thanks for listening to the show. Stick around to hear what's coming up next episode, but first, I want to fill you in on a few ways you can stay in touch with the show. Want to be on the show? Leave us a voicemail at 702-763-4838. That's 702-POD-4TFU. Or send an email to info@tfu.info. Be sure to catch us on Twitter at TFU_info and on Facebook and Instagram under the username TFU.INFO, all one word. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TFU.INFO, where we post all of our podcasts, plus special video segments, reviews, and live coverage of Transformers-related events such as New York Toy Fair and New York Comic-Con. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit us at www.tfu.info, the world's longest-running transforming toy archive.
And that will do it for this episode of Transformers University. Next time on the show, we're going to do what I find is a lot of people's one of favorite style of episode. We only do these once every year that we cover. And we're going to go by the numbers for 1988. We're going to go through the tech specs. We're going to count molds and see how many new molds and recolors and all those things are. And we'll kind of group them out by types. If you've never heard one of these are a lot of fun. So stick around for episode 143 of Transformers University, where we'll go by the numbers in 1988. And of course, all of our patrons at the senior and up levels get a shout out here on the program. So here we go. Our super seniors: Alex Mendoza, Eric Sire, John Forex Livingood, Jay Soups, Paul Heel, and Sean Hamilton. And of course, our lone senior, Jacob Owen Lucha. Thank you all for being such great supporters of this podcast. We could not do it without you. I could not do it without you. I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO. See ya.